Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar, The Basics of On-Page SEO. My name is Lisa, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Currently, the country is experiencing the second wave, as we are calling it, of COVID-19, with Auckland in Alert Level 3 and the remainder of the country in Alert Level 2. While some of the rules are seemingly more relaxed than last time, and some businesses are prepared for this, there is still the urgent need for businesses to get online and digitally transform. If you haven't started yet, we do suggest tracking your plans here, but if you have already started, you know it's best looking at what your next steps are. This is why we felt today that it was very important for us to speak again about search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is the longer term strategy in the digital space, and now is a good time to be making some changes or even making a start on your website here. We have a fantastic speaker today, Jara Borman, our agency director at Zeald. Jara has worked and continues to work with numerous businesses, providing strategies for both short and long-term solutions, and in particular in the current climate, looking at different ways they can approach the digital space. He has compiled a bunch of expert tips for you to get started on search engine optimization today. Oh, would help if I changed the slide, sorry. And next up is just housekeeping as well. So how the webinar will run today. So if you can't hear anything right now, please check your audio settings at the bottom of your Zoom screen and you'll be able to update those there. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to use the chat or the QA section during the presentation. If we feel the question suits what we're discussing, we will raise it at the time. Otherwise, we have a full question section at the end of the webinar where you will be able to participate. If you do want to ask your question verbally, you can also raise your hand and we can give you the option to speak and ask your question. So now that that's over, I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I'll now hand over to Jara to take us through the basics of on-page SEO.
Cool, thank you very much, Lisa. So I'll just flick through the presentation to the right page. We don't need to see my introduction again. All right, so SEO is one, or search engine optimization is one of my favorite topics. And so today we're going to look at just the very basics of on-page SEO. And these are some of the elements that you can control on your own website and have some influence over how Google ranks you and also the sort of information that you publish through to Google, which is one of the critical things that we'll cover today. In my opinion, if you've got a website and you're working in the online space, these basics are some things that everyone should understand because it's things that they can influence. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about the difference between on-page and off-page search engine optimization, some of the components that you can control, what head titles and descriptions are, what metadata is as a whole, how you should approach keyword research, which is really important, how to map those keywords to different pages on your site, a little bit more detail about the meta description, some information about keywords, H1, content, URLs, and alt tags. So there's a little bit of jargon in there. I'll try not to get too technical today, but I will try to give you a really good overview of on-page SEO and what you can do to influence things with Google. All right, so let's get started. Starts with content, right? Starts with content, starts with that page that I've just clicked past too quickly. Now, it's really important that before you start trying to rank for something, you actually have something to say about that particular topic. There's no point making a claim with Google saying, hey, I'm the best person to show in the first position on Google for this topic if you don't actually have anything to back that up with. So it starts with some content. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to develop some smart content for websites and online in general, then we did a presentation around that or a webinar about that a couple of weeks ago, and you can find that on the Zeald website as well. So once you've got some content that you want to start getting some traffic to, you want to start ranking on Google, only then do you start this sort of exercise. All right, so the first thing you want to look at, and this is search engine optimization as a whole, or a visualization. There's actually a lot more to it than this. Some fields say that some research says that Google ranks, it takes about 250 to 300 different factors to rank pages, and it's constantly changing, and it is quite a complex exercise. However, what we see here are some of the basics of SEO that are really well agreed on as being things you can do to influence your ranking online. So today we're just going to focus on the on-page side of things. Now this is the practice of controlling what you can control on your own website, hence on-page. Off-page are things that you can do outside of your website, on other websites and social media and blogs and things like that. We're not going to cover that today. We're just going to focus on page, or what you can do on your own website. So let's look at some of the basic elements of SEO. All right, so with on-page SEO, the most important element is what's called the head title. This is what search engines display directly in a search result. It's also what they take a lot of cues from as to what the content of the page is. The best way to think about the head title is it's like the headline of a newspaper article. If you were flicking through a newspaper, you'd decide what article to read based on the headline in that newspaper. And so this is the same, this is very true for a website as well. The head title is what helps people determine, or what search engines determine, what article or what website page is best for people. And so if you think about it in that same context, that the head title is like the headline on your newspaper article, then that'll help guide you in your thinking as to what this is for. The meta description is what comes after the head title, and this is for each individual page. It's written for humans. It's written as a short description of what that page is about, so that a human might decide to click through to that page from a Google search result. So it's important that the meta description is written as quite compelling. It encourages people to take action and tell them why they should visit your website. Then you've got the H1 tag, which is a heading tag that you can control on your website page. And then you've got the readability of the URL, or sometimes referred to as the slug, depending on the system that you use to manage your website. And so I'll show you what each of those elements actually are in an example. And then obviously you've got your content that you're trying to rank for, and that should have a reasonable amount of what's called keyword density. So what I mean by that is, if you're trying to rank for a specific keyword, the content that you're trying to get ranking should actually have that keyword in there at least a couple of times. All right, and then you have what are called alt tags as well. And we'll talk about those a little bit later, but they relate to the images on your website page. So let's get started. Let's have a look at how all of these items show up. So these are controlled, all of these items that we've just talked about, all these components are controlled on your website. However, they all publish through into the Google search result. And when you see a Google search result, you've got this title at the top, you've got the URL or the address of the website page, and then you also have the description too. So these elements here that you control on your website have a direct impact on what information shows in a Google search result page. The title tag, or the head title, is this first element. It's the most important piece, as I said. Search engines use that as a really good guide as to what a page is about. Then the URL or the slug here should also have some good readable information in it. And then the next piece is your meta description, right? And that should be written so that it compels somebody to go and open up that page. In this case, really nice, nicely written here. So you can read it here. It's kind of excited. It's got an exclamation mark. It's encouraging you to open that web page. So those three items are all things that you can control for your own website and actually publish through into a Google search result page. All right. So let's start with that, and all of that is called the metadata. Now, my first expert tip here is, if you're on WordPress, which is the most popular website platform in the world, powering about 60% of websites, then you'll need to add a plugin in to manage these elements, and there's a free plugin called Yoast for SEO that allows you to set metadata for each of your pages. It's a great tool. It's one that we use, and if you're on WordPress, then I highly recommend that you install that. It will allow you to control the metadata, or the title, the description, etc., which are very important. So now you've got an idea of what those components are, just some of the first basic ones, all right? Before you start going through and trying to write all of those, it's really important that you create some keyword targets. What are some things that you need to rank for as a business that are highly searched by your customers and that are relevant to the products and services you provide? You do this through keyword research, and it's important to do this right up front so you know what your most important keywords are. In fact, I would suggest every business should have a list of maybe the top 10 keywords that relate to their products and services so that they can use them in all sorts of different content development strategies, and they certainly underpin anything that you will do with search engine optimization. All right, so the objective with keyword research is to find the opportunity. What's being searched by people and what is relevant to your organization. You want to find the most relevant keyword with the highest search volume, and that should form the basis of your keyword targets. And then obviously, once again, as I said right up front, you need to have content to cover this. So if you get to this point and you found some keywords that you want to rank for and you don't have anything on your website that relates to those keywords, then you're going to have to write something. You have to create some content, find a place for it on your website, and then enact the next steps that I'm going to talk through. So where to start, right? So keyword research shouldn't be guesswork, right? It's probably pretty easy for you to sit down and go, oh, I think these are the top 10 keywords. That'll do, right? Well, you don't have to guess. You should do a little bit of research. Google has a free keyword planner that you can use. And what you do is you go and use the keyword planner and you can put your landing page in, which could be your homepage. Google will actually scrape that one, and then from there you might want to set which areas that you want to target as well, what languages and locations, all of this sort of information can be set. Then what Google will do is it will scroll your site or the page that you've recommended, and it will come back to you with a list of suggested keywords that relate to the content you have. And it will give you approximate search volumes, competitiveness, and a number of other factors as well. Taking that information will help you determine your keyword set that you want to target. All right. And so you can do that for as many pages as you like. You could do that for the home page, could be for each of your product and services pages as well, until you've defined some top keywords for each page. This gives you the ideas that you need. All right. Here's an example of it being split out. This is a search for a website called Mission Kayaking, and it's got you some details here that Kayak NZ has between 1,000 and 10,000 searches per month, Ocean Kayak, and a number of other different related terms that could be worth trying to rank for. It gives you some level of competition, and it gives you also the monthly searches volume there. So you can see that easily the Kayak NZ is quite a much bigger term than any of the others. All right, it is just relative search volumes. Okay, so once you've got that data, then what you want to do is you want to get your top keywords, and you want to try and map those keywords to different pages on your website. Now, the key here is that the homepage shouldn't try and win every search. The most important keywords to you that have the highest search volume and the highest value to you should definitely be mapped towards the homepage. However, each of the other pages on your website should have a purpose as well and should have relevant keywords matched to them. Often see this as a mistake. People get started in this space, they'll find a list of keywords and they'll try and do what's called stuffing, and they will put every single keyword they want to rank for into their homepage and hope that Google will just rank them for all of it. That's very unlikely to happen. So what you want to do is be really clear and kind of almost clean with what keywords you want to rank for each page. And you should pick 1 or 2 keywords per page, maybe a primary and a secondary keyword. Once again, that keyword these keywords that you're mapping needs to match the content on that page. One thing that helps with this is what's called silo grouping. So the more specific that your keywords are, more niche, the further away they might be from the homepage, and you can group them in ways that help make sense for users and for Google as well. And I'll show you an example of how that can work in the next slide or so. The most valuable keywords, once again, should be mapped as close as possible to the homepage because the homepage has the most value in Google's eyes. Now, that is changing a little bit. Google is starting to rank internal pages or pages past the homepage more often if it sees them as being relevant. So it's important not to just focus on the homepage. Then content pages with the most valuable keyword. Yeah, so I just said that to the homepage. So when it comes to search terms, you want to define your target keywords first, right? As I said, go through that research, define them, and then even go as far as potentially defining questions that people may be asking Google and answer them. So some of the most valuable and successful SEO campaigns that I've seen run, they are based around a question that the target audience is asking of Google. Google itself is very aware that people will ask it questions. In fact, Google actually redid its entire search algorithm a couple of years ago to cater for what's called natural language search. That means that if you ask Google a question, it will be able to find you an answer because it understands terms in relation to each other. Rather than just keyword plus keyword, you can ask a question and Google will get you a pretty good result. Sometimes trying to find those specific questions that people might be asking is a really powerful strategy. However, you would want to start with those other keywords, top keywords that I talked about before. So when I suggested silo mapping of keywords, this is what I mean. if you had a number of terms that were identified, and you could actually map them out in a way like this. So how to play the guitar would be a very powerful overarching theme or keyword or search term for the website, and you'd map that to the homepage. Then there might be something that's just a little bit more specific. So how to play the blues guitar, that could be a secondary page, and you'd map that term to that page. And you'd have classical guitar and acoustic guitar, and each of those would be your second level pages. From there, you may have some specific articles on how to play different blues guitar riffs or songs, and you could put those into articles that would sit underneath that secondary page. All right, this is what's called silos. So you've got a silo here with each different theme that is a subset of the primary focus of the website. So once you've done your keyword research, you might be able to set things up so that there are silos or themes within your website and organize your content and keyword mapping accordingly. It's quite a good technique to take if you've got a lot of terms and a lot of content. Setting things up in silos or themes not only makes it helpful for Google, it helps Google rank you really well, it's also really good for users. When they arrive on your website, they can easily see what sort of information you have and navigate those themes and then find the right article for them really, really quickly. So earlier on, I mentioned that head titles are the most important element on a page. So in some cases, this has been shown to take up to about 50% of your on-page optimization. 50% of the weighting comes from the head title. That, to be honest, has started to drift a bit lower in recent times as Google gets a bit smarter and looks at more and more elements on the page. However, it is still one of the most important elements that you can control. So the head title is written specifically for search engines. So it should have those keywords in there, and it does make up the largest proportion of on-page SEO for each page. It should be written for specifically for each individual page on your website. So you don't do this once and just roll it out across the entire site, which you often see. You should be doing it for each individual page on the website. You're making a claim with this title, so you need to make sure, once again, that you've backed it up with content. And you need to also consider the fact that it's generally from left to right in order of importance. So the most important keyword should be first, and the least important keyword should be last. How this is generally written in terms of a format is that it's separated by pipes. That's the technical term for this vertical line. And so often what you'll do as a format is what, where, and who. This is a nice simple way to arrange it. What do you provide, where do you provide it, and who are you? That's a really good way to kind of just easily get started with metadata and writing head titles using that sort of format. So another format could be primary keyword, secondary keyword, and then your brand name. So more just what, and who. You're only allowed 50 to 60 characters, so make sure you keep it nice and tight, and that way it will publish through to Google. Anything past 60 characters isn't really picked up, and so it's just wasting a bit of space. And technically, it's not actually a character width, it's the number of pixels. So if you put lots of W's in there, you might have less characters to play with. So here's where the next is the meta description. So we've talked about the head title, which is, in our case, Zeald. We've used Zeald Adapt, Evolve, Survive, which is just a positioning statement that we have. And then what you can do is you can set this description here, which is written for humans. This is your sales pitch. This is what you do and why people should work with you. And it's essentially an encouragement for people to visit your website. What's really critical here is that regardless of any influence on your rankings, so just going through and doing all your metadata is not a silver bullet. It's not the only thing you need to do to get really good ranking or control the #1 spot on Google. But by doing this, what you do is you can control what information you publish to a Google search result. And that's really critical. It's something that you have control over. And so you don't leave it to chance, you control it and make sure that the right information is appearing. If you don't set a meta description, Google will actually randomly grab bits of information out of your website and try and compile it on the fly, which can work, but sometimes it doesn't work at all. And so it's really important that you don't leave that to chance. You want to include a value proposition in this description, and you also want to make sure that, well, the key reason you want to control this is it impacts on click-through rate, or CTR. So a really strong description will encourage people to open your website. The more people that open your website, the higher your click-through rate is, and that has a direct impact on SEO as well, or on your rankings. The higher the click-through rate improves the SEO, as I said. This needs to be shorter than 160 characters. Otherwise, Google's just going to cut it off, right? And so there's no point writing any more than 160 characters. You want to keep it under that limit so that everything you want to say is displayed in a Google search result. And once again, it should be unique per page. The key thing, once again, with the value proposition is that you should be writing this to let people know what the benefit of clicking through to the website is. All right, so in this case, we specialize in the rapid digital transformation of small to medium-sized businesses, and that's one of the things that we do and why people should open our website. As I said before, if not used, Google will actually just sample content from the page based on the search, and it will just compile something on the fly, which sometimes looks a bit odd. You'll often find if you start looking at this a bit more deeply, you'll actually see often in a Google search result a little bit of information and then a couple of dots and then a little bit more information and a couple of dots, and it may not make a lot of sense, but that's Google just trying to create it on the fly for you. Next section I want to talk about is the meta keywords tag, right? So there's a bit of danger here, and the reason being is that this is no longer utilized by Google, right? This is something that was used a lot in the past. If we're going back maybe 15 years ago, the keywords tag was one of the primary things you could do to help influence search engine optimization, but it was absolutely abused, right? People just started putting all sorts of keywords in there, and Google said, no, I had enough of that. I'm not going to use that as a ranking factor anymore. Just on a funny story, one of the first websites it wasn't while I was in web development myself, but someone created a website for me for a radio station I worked for, and they came to me and said, we've got this great tactic. We're going to get heaps of traffic to your site. We're going to put trade me in the keyword section on your website, and we'll get heaps of traffic from Google, which looking back on that now is quite hilarious. But that's why it's no longer used, is because people did try and trick Google. And so now from a meta keywords tag point of view, it's better to not use it if you don't have to, because getting it wrong will have a negative impact, but getting it right doesn't have any positive impact at all. So and if you use it incorrectly, it will attract penalties, and your site could get hurt or drop in rankings. If you are going to use it, you want to have about 8 to 10 keywords at most, and they should be in a list format. The reason that you will sometimes use these is they are often used for an internal site search function. So if someone arrives on your site and you want your search function to work really well for finding pages within your site itself, often keywords is the go-to for that. So it does still get used for that purpose, but it's not an SEO. There's no SEO value in this. So the format should be listed with commas as well. So you can just see in here, website design, comma, website development, comma, adaptive will survive. So that just gives you an idea of the format that you should be using. Once you get onto a website page, it's important that you back up that claim. And the first thing you can do on a website to back that up is what's called the H1 tag. This is the first headline on a web page, and the H1 tag is the technical term and the kind of markup that you have around that title. Most website systems will automatically put that tag on there for you for the first headline. All you need to do is make sure that that first headline does actually have your primary keyword in it that you're trying to rank for, so that especially as a user arrives on the page, they've searched for something, they arrive on the page says, hey, you're in the right place. So it's really important that you get this right. And the keyword should also feature in the copy on the page, or the content, ideally in the first couple of sentences, once again to just reinforce the claim that you've made with the title, but also to reinforce with the user who's arrived on that page that they're in the right place and this is the information they were looking for. And yeah, just once again, I've probably hammered this point home quite a bit, but keyword optimization and all of the tactics that we're talking about here are very much just to help content be found. So if you've got some great content and you just want people to find it and connect with it and get it out there, then this is a great strategy to use, but it doesn't work if you don't have that content in the first place. All right, and as Lisa said right up front, it really is a longer term strategy here. You can't flick a switch and all of a sudden get ranking organically on Google. It is a medium to longer term exercise, something you just need to chip away at, which is why it's so good to understand as a business owner how this works so that you can just start influencing this yourself. So let's pull everything together here for a second. Let's imagine that I've got a sandblasting company and I've gone and done some keyword research, and I found that my first primary keyword is sandblasting and my secondary and most important keyword is surface finishing. So I write a title for my homepage on my website that's sandblasting and surface finishing, and I put my name in here as well, ABC Sanders. All right, I've got it at 50 characters, so I've got it nice and tidy under the limit, and this is what's going to display in Google in blue as the title. Then I've written a description, which is compelling, and it's designed to get somebody to click through to the website. So ABC Sandblasters provide high quality sandblasting and surface finishing services. Call today for a free quote. So I'm trying to encourage some action with it. Then when someone arrives on the page, you've got the header is quality sandblasting and surface finishing as the H1 tag, right, the first heading, and then I've just written the first part of the text on the page as well, which have included sandblasting and surface finishing. Now I've done this quite simplistically so that, and it's kind of a little bit clunky really, but just to give you an idea of how you approach it, you might like to write this just a little bit more naturally so that the language doesn't look so forced as what I've done here, but I have done that just to give you guys a really good idea of how you approach it. So then we get on to a couple of other technical, so a little bit more technical, the URL and the alt tag, right? So one of the things that's really good is you've made a claim with the metadata, the head title, and in the text, then it's really good to include some of the information or the keywords into your URL structure as well. So if you've got a secondary page for this sandblasting company about abrasive blasting, then you actually create a page with that term in the address, and then you go through the same process of writing the head title and everything for that particular subsurface, right? And same way we've done here with Zeald, we've got our services, and then we've got our digital transformation service as well. And then the alt tag is something that you should also look at as well. And this is the tag that's associated with any images on the page. And so the alt tags should be different for each image, and they should also potentially include the keyword as well. One of the reasons that where this alt tag came from, or alt text, is that initially when the internet came about, that you were doing everything through dial-up and everything was very slow. To try and speed up the loading of pages, you might turn off image loading. And so what happened when you did that is that where an image should be, an alternative text just showed instead, saying maybe this was a picture of a cat, right? So you'd kind of know what the image was without having to load it. And so Google started using that alternative text to get a sense of what the image was about, and it still uses it a little bit today to help understand what the content on a page is about. So once you've done a lot of this other stuff we've spoken about, then maybe looking at how you tag your images as well would be a good next step. And some additional tips here for you. Focus on great content first, and then get these relevant tags, the title tag, the description tag, and then even the alt tags and so on. Keep the keyword target simple. You don't want to go over the top and get too complex or try and do too much at once. Just keep them nice and simple. When you want to be a bit more complex, you can start to write some blog articles and things like that that are very specific to particular topics, and maybe answering questions. You do that within that area. But for the homepage and some of your category or service pages, keep those targets nice and simple, and then just focus on getting some good content in there. Don't over optimize. So you can actually have a negative impact. If you try to be too clever with this, try and put too many keywords in on one page, or just try and kind of trick Google, if that makes sense, then you could actually have a negative impact on your site as well. So the key is just to keep it nice and simple and make it nice and clear what you're trying to rank for, and then have good content to back it up. So keyword integration into the copy just needs to be nice and natural. So you want to try and just include those keywords and terms in there as part of your normal writing. It doesn't need to be too specific. Don't overstuff the contents or tags. That's pretty important. And also in competitive industries, you're going to need to combine this basic stuff that I've outlined with a lot more technical work and a lot more off-page optimization to get some really good results. So yeah, the more people there are in your industry, the more effort you're going to need to put into this space. This will just get you started with this basics session today. You probably will need to back that up with a little bit more work as well. All right, so yeah, that's my content for today. Yeah, now I invite you to send through some questions if you've got them.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dara. There's been a lot of information you've shared with us today. And just a quick note for everyone, we do post these webinar videos on our website as well as on YouTube. So if there's anything you missed, we will be sending you out an email with the links so you can rewatch it. So don't feel like if you missed something, that's the end of it.
Yeah, because I talk too fast anyway. Sorry about that.
We've got a lot to get through, so that's very key. But as Jarrah said, right now is the time for questions. So we did get one during it. So Trina was just asking, what is a value proposition? So maybe if we can go into a bit more detail around that.
That's a great question. So that's like a positioning statement for your product and service. What it should be is it should answer why people should work with you. Right? That's what a value proposition is about. It should be a sentence that kind of encapsulates what it's like for a person to work with you, and ideally it should speak to the benefits of working with you. Rather than just a basic value proposition would just be, what do you do? But a really well-crafted value proposition should be, why should someone use you and what are the benefits of doing so? If you get it to that more advanced level, answering that why question, your website's likely to work a lot better.
Definitely. No, thanks for that. Now we've also had another one pop in. So I have Andreas has asked, I have a business where competitive advantage is price, but I don't want to use negative keywords like cheap. However, the word affordable doesn't get used much in questions and searches. How do I get around this?
That's a great question. So yeah, so you want to be talking about the best value for money and things like that. So you want to, that's generally how you approach it. Cheap has a lot of negative connotations as well. You want to be talking about, I like the fact you've mentioned affordable, but that is a difficult one to rank for because people are not searching for that. So you probably want to write some articles or something on your website or some content around it, just that is optimized for your product and cheap, but then actually position all the information on the page as being about how much value for money that you provide and how affordable it is. So you can use the keyword to make a connection with people, right? But then make sure that you position the product as high value and cost effective rather than just cheap. So you can make the connection and then make a really good impression on people would be the strategy that I would try and introduce. Difficult one to do, so great question. That is something that we could potentially sit down and talk through a little bit more with one of our strategists to just understand and help you with a bit more of a detailed strategy than what I can provide here.
Definitely, no, great. And we've also just been asked, so their site is on our Zest, so our Zeald platform, and does the Yoast plugin work on Zest?
Right, so the Yoast plugin is just for WordPress, and we do WordPress sites as well, but you don't need a plugin for Zest. Zest has got all of those components built in. So you'll be able to control the head title, the description, the alt tags, and the keywords, all of those items, and the H1 tags as well. All of that is all controllable within the Zest system without having to have any other plugins or anything like that. So you're in good hands on that platform. It's designed to be really SEO friendly as well.
And we have help guides on how to do that, or,
Yes.
or if it's something that you want a bit of a strategy around, again, we're happy to sort of help guide you with that. So we've got Amanda asking, so what if you have a site that is pretty static, i.e. they have no blogs? Basically.
Right, so this is a great question actually, Amanda. So actually having a site that's really static does start to make it quite difficult from an SEO point of view to get good ranking. Google's constantly looking for fresh content, for sites that are active. And so if you just create a site and then leave it and don't make any changes, then you might get some SEO ranking and value out of it, but it's going to be very difficult for you to get into some of the top rankings because Google does want to see sites that are moving and that are active. So that's why we do actually recommend adding a blog onto most sites, is because it's a nice simple way to be just adding a little bit of content and keeping things fresh, and so that's a really critical part of SEO. So yeah, and answer to your question, if you have a site that's pretty static, it's going to make things really a lot more difficult. The only way you will get ranking is if the competition is low, or if you then focus really local, where you can more easily win your search. For example, you might want to search, if you're in Auckland, you might want to try and optimize for the suburb that you're in and really focus on that local area rather than trying to win searches for Auckland as a whole, which are more competitive. So that's a strategy you could use to counter that.
Amanda did just quickly add, they do update their vacancies, etc. So would that help?
That would help. Yeah. Yes, it would. Yeah, so awesome. Keeping those sort of things, any sort of activity on the site just shows that someone's actually looking after it, it's caring about the site a little bit, which makes it more likely to be a friendly place to send people to. Ultimately, and this is a really good thing to remember with all search engine optimization, Google is trying to send users through to websites where they will have a great experience, right? So user experience and the content that a user gets to, that's what Google's looking for, right? The reason being is that the better experience people have going to Google, finding great websites, the more likely they are to come back and keep using Google. So that's the high level strategy that Google has. And so everything that you do should be kind of thinking about things in that context.
Definitely. Look, just to let everyone know, we do have quite a few questions to go through, and I do think they're all very valuable. So we are going to run a bit over time today. So I will just carry on. So another question is, do downloadable resources help on-page SEO?
Yeah, so one thing that's a little bit tricky is the downloadable resource itself, right, may not be able to be indexed by Google. And so the content on that resource may not add benefit to you. So you'll need to make sure that you at least take some of the content out of the downloadable resource and have it rendered on a web page so that Google can see the value of that content or could see that you have content about that. Just having a page that says, check out our resources, download it all here, that could be a bit tricky for Google to work through. That said, if the PDFs that you're having as downloadable content are stored in the right way, Google will index those directly now. And so that can, so long as the site that you've got has the right mechanism for that, just having them can help. So
I think it's key that it's one of those things where a bit more information or just, a couple of extra seconds adding something on a page is it was more valuable for SEO than what it will be for anything else. You can go to a website and the product is a red t-shirt, and that's the product title, but it only takes an extra couple of seconds to write out this is a red t-shirt in the description as well. And that's just some keys for helping your website there. So it's those little tiny steps.
Yeah, and once again, what Google's looking for is a great experience for users. So if someone arrived on let's use your example, someone arrived on a page for a red t-shirt, and look, if you wrote some information about, hey, look, this red t-shirt would go great with a pair of jeans. It's useful for the beach, and just, like what you're doing is you're describing that product and you're giving the user a whole bunch more information about why it's such a great product to use. Google will see that as a more valuable page than another page that's just got, this is a red t-shirt. I don't know if we've stretched that example too far, but I thought hopefully that helps you get a sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we've been asked, so how would you implement SEO with different diverse customers and take account on each customer's needs to further increase the customer traffic?
Great question. Okay, so what you would do then is you would actually look at that silo system that I was talking about before and look at the themes that need to be created for each of the different customer groups. And then you would create landing pages specifically to each customer group and have the keywords targeted accordingly. So you've got to think about people, you don't want everyone to just come in through the homepage as if it's the front gate to your website. You want to be able to have lots of different places that people can enter the site that are maybe more relevant to them. And so that you go through that process of understanding who each of those different customer groups were, what their needs were, and then creating pages specifically for them that would rank on terms that were important to them. Great. It's actually a great strategy for getting more traffic through to your site is having that more specific technique to cater for lots of different customers.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And you covered off around alt tags for images. So can you do alt tags for videos?
Yeah, also, so most videos are not actually hosted on the website itself. They're usually
that's true.
Hosted with a third party like YouTube, for example. And I do recommend YouTube because Google owns it, Google likes it. That having videos embedded on your website that are actually hosted on Google is another great technique for getting some ranking as well, because Google likes to see that sort of content there. In answer to your specific question, you can create tags or keywords for each of the videos that you load onto something like YouTube, and that will have the same similar kind of purpose.
Awesome. And do inbound and outbound hyperlinks affect SEO?
Yes, in part. So just the general rule of thumb is to get as many quality links coming into your site and as few links going away. All right. I remember an SEO expert a few years ago used to talk about it as like SEO juice that would flow to you through links and that would flow away with all of the exit links that you created as well. So ultimately, you want to get high quality sites linking to you and have as few links away. There's two parts to that link away. One is that the more links away, it harms SEO. But secondly, they're exit points for users. You usually work very hard to get people into your website. And if you've got lots of links away, you will actually lose a lot of users as well. And so there's two parts to reducing the number of exit links as possible. Yeah.
Awesome. So Adrian's asked us, so apart from blogs, because we obviously touched on that quite a bit, what else could someone who's managing a site do to keep it fresh and active?
apart from blogs. So just yeah, what you could encourage people to do to get reviews. It depends on what type of site you've got. Obviously, if it's products, then you want to be making sure that you've got as much information about products that people need to be able to make a purchasing decision. So working on getting videos in there, getting technical specifications, descriptions about those images, then even getting some reviews on those products as well. All of that is great content to be building up around a product. And equally, you could use a lot of those same techniques for a service as well. And so I would, rather than blogs first, I would always recommend that you get some really good developed quality content around each of your key products and services. That's the first target, right? Blogs come after that. And so that's why I'd suggest the focus is there.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, 3 left. So I'll wrap up the questions after this. So
cool.
Is Squarespace okay for SEO?
So look, most modern content management systems are all designed to be good for search engine optimization. Even traditionally, there was a few that were frowned upon for SEO purposes. Most of those have got their act together now, and just about every modern content management system will allow you in some way, shape, or form to control the elements that you need to for SEO. So the short answer is yeah, Squarespace is generally considered to be quite fine for SEO.
And in terms, they all have that basic level, you know, the things that you're doing, first steps. It's probably once you start looking at the more advanced techniques that you're looking at maybe having to put some more money into your platform to do those. But in particular for, you know, almost everything we've covered today, a platform should be able to deliver on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, no, I was really talking in reference to what we've covered today. Most platforms will cover that. When you get into the technical elements of SEO, there will be potentially some limitations on what you can do, potentially around writing slugs and things like that, and maybe around speed and the ability to cache certain parts of pages. But in general, that's probably getting quite advanced. So I think for most people that are looking at Squarespace as an easy, simple website builder, that this will cover most of their needs.
Right. And so Andreas has asked if we are investing in Google AdWords. I love this question. Should we ignore these keywords for our organic SEO optimization?
Not at all. All right. So the two have work quite well together. Now, the reason, one of the key reasons being, is that your cost per click in AdWords is directly related to your quality score. All right, your quality score is determined by the relevancy of your site to the term that you're bidding on in AdWords. So search engine optimization improves your relevancy to a search, improves your quality score, and so then in direct correlation, your cost per click goes down and the ranking of your ads go up as well. Right, so there is a direct impact on your AdWords program from having a good, solid search engine optimization initiative as well on the same keywords. On top of that, if you can get an ad ranking and you can also get your organic site ranking and maybe even a Google My Business listing in there as well, you can potentially have 3 options for people to click on within the first half a page of Google if you're doing well. And so it's important to try and dominate that space as much as possible.
Oh, fantastic. And we've had a question from Diego, and I might be having a bit of a brain fart moment, but the idea to change the title for each page is valid for SPA? I'm
not sure what SPA is relating to. So so I'm not sure I understand the question, sorry. But the idea to change the title for each page is not an idea specifically. It's something that you do have to do. Having the same title for every single page is just it's going to mean that your internal pages just don't rank at all. If you are able to send through some more detail around that, Diego, we might be able to help you out separately. But yeah.
Fantastic. So great amount of questions today. I think it's really just added to what we've learned. You know, so great to see that our presentation has sort of brought that about as well. So what I'll do now is we're just heading into our Zeald overview. Bring that across. So if we recap, what we know is those who have taken steps previously to digitally transform are finding business easier in the recent move to alert level 2 and 3. And what the opportunity though is continue to focus on digitally transforming your business. Having a website is a good start. So if you haven't done it already, do that first, but then also having customers and prospects be able to find that website is where you now need to start to focus. So SEO is really good in this space due to its long-term benefits for your website. You obviously can get quick wins through some other aspects, Google Ads as we touched on quickly, but SEO is that long-term gain that you'll be needing. Our prediction is that NZ has returned to shopping online again. I know I'm seeing lots of click and collect or pick up and order online first. Don't come in the shop, but I'll put it on a table and you can grab it from there. So, you know, those that have taken small steps to do what they can in a digital space are definitely starting to see results from that. So the recommendation is, whether you are just starting out or partway through your digital transformation, is to keep taking those small steps forward to adapt and evolve your business. That's probably just one of the key here. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just take a small step at a time and keep going, because we know that the digital space is very large, but if you don't even try to get on the path, you know, you're going to fall behind, and we don't want to see that for any small to medium businesses, or any businesses at all, actually. So just running over, so Zeald has helped over 15,000 businesses transform digitally over the last 20 years. And we do run these webinars every week on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Our next webinar is on marketing automation and the power of chatbots. So Joshua, the CEO for...
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, will be joining us to discuss how they convert social media engagement into conversions and the unknown power of messenger marketing and automation. So I know over the last few weeks I've found out more about this, and it's certainly, man, it looks easy, but it's not. But it certainly could make your business life a little easier. So just on that as well, if you would like any additional support in the form of a pre-strategy session on audit with one of our strategists, please let us know on the feedback form that we will be sending out. But Zeald overall, we are continuing to be committed to helping businesses in the small to medium space. So for those of you who are new, we have created what we're calling our Get E-commerce movement, which is supporting businesses getting online with no upfront cost and no sale, no fee hosting package for the first 12 months. So if you want to find out more details about that, please head to our website or share maybe with a business that's in need of that. And also for others as well, we are offering services under the Regional Business Partners program. So your business may be eligible for funding from them, and you can apply directly to them for that. But if you are unsure on steps and just need to talk to someone to guide you through a little, feel free to get in touch. We would love to help you. And so following that, just a very special thanks again to our speaker today, Jara. It was fantastic, and really learnt a lot today. I know I've already know a little bit about SEO, but again, taken to another level today. So thanks for that.
Cool. Thanks, Lisa.
No worries. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.